At the beginning of the story, we see the World Cup final match between Brazil and France. The entire stadium is packed with spectators, and everyone is extremely excited about the match. But just then, suddenly, a bright purple light becomes visible right in the middle of the field. Within just a few seconds, that light starts taking on an even more dangerous form. No one present in the stadium can understand what is happening. Just then, some soldiers emerge from within that light. These were no ordinary soldiers. They had come from the future, from the year 2051. Among them was also a female soldier whose name was Lieutenant Hart. She tells the entire world that in 2048, a terrifying alien species will attack Earth, and within just 3 years, nearly all of humanity will be wiped out. She says that in the future, the number of humans has dwindled so drastically that they cannot win this war alone. So they need the help of people from the present time. The entire world is stunned hearing all of this. The millions of people in the stadium and those sitting in front of their televisions fall completely silent. During this, we see a man named Dan Forrester. Dan is a biology teacher at a high school, but he never liked this normal life of teaching because at one time he had been an experienced commander in the American Army. He still misses the battlefield life. Dan was living a simple life with his wife Emmy and his little daughter Murray. But somewhere inside him, the feeling was always there that he wanted to do something much bigger than this. That is why he was constantly trying to find a job at different research labs. His dream was to combine science and military experience to do something that would change the world. But every time he only received rejection. This was the reason Dan had been growing increasingly frustrated inside. That evening, Dan was watching that same football match on television with his family. Just then, the announcement from the soldiers who had come from the future shakes the entire world. After this incident, fear and panic spreads throughout the world. The major countries of the world come together and form a joint military force. The decision is taken that if necessary, ordinary civilians will also be sent to fight in this war. But many people start opposing this, because many people had been sent to the future before as well, and not a single one of them came back. Meanwhile, Dan notices in his classroom that the children are no longer at all interested in studying, and this was partly understandable because if the entire world was going to end in a few years, what was the point of studying? Just then, a message arrives on Dan's phone from the American military. It says that he has been selected to be sent to the future. Dan is not happy reading this message, but he had no other choice either. So after school ends, he reaches the military base. There first, his body undergoes several kinds of testing. Then he is made to sit in front of a large machine. His hand is inserted into the machine. Suddenly, a sharp pain starts in his hand because the machine was inserting several small needles under his skin. Dan writhes in pain. Just then, a commander tells him that a special tracking device is being implanted in his hand. This device contains an extremely powerful GPS system. With its help, every movement of his can be tracked from the control room even after he goes to the future. After this, a female commander tells Dan another shocking thing. She says that according to records, Dan's death will occur in 2030, meaning he has only a few years left. Hearing the date of his own death, Dan goes completely silent for a while. He cannot figure out what to say. Somehow, steadying himself, he returns home and tells Emmy everything. Hearing all of this, Emmy's face goes pale with fear. She tells Dan they will leave this city and go far away. But Dan explains to her that doing so is pointless because the tracking device in his hand will not allow him to hide anywhere. Then Emmy says that if anyone can remove that device, it is only one person. Dan immediately understands she is talking about his father, James. James was a mechanical engineer and a former soldier, but many years ago, he had left Dan and his mother. From that very day, Dan had started hating his father. Dan refuses to go to him at first, but at Emmy's insistence, he finally agrees. The moment he reaches James, the two start arguing about old matters. Slowly, the argument escalates so much that Dan leaves in anger. Returning home, he tells Emmy that now he has no choice but to go to the future. However, he promises Emmy that being a former soldier, he will come back alive no matter what. After this, Dan goes to his little daughter Murray's room. He tells her that he will return quickly, but little Murray understands that her father is going to war, so she starts crying. Dan lovingly runs his hand over her head and then says goodbye to his wife and daughter and heads toward the military base. After reaching the military base, Dan sees many ordinary people there who were being trained to be sent to the future. Here he meets two people. The first was Charlie, who was an atmospheric scientist, and the second was Dorian, who was a former soldier and had already been to the future twice before and fought. Dorian always wore an alien's claw around his neck. For him, it was not just a trophy, but a reminder of survival. Later, this very thing was going to become the biggest clue of the entire story. At that same moment, a lieutenant comes out in front of everyone and explains that they will only be sent to the future for 7 days. The moment 7 days are completed, the tracking device in their hand will automatically bring them back to the present time. Just then, a woman asks that if a time travel machine exists, why don't they go to the future before the attack happens and stop the aliens? The lieutenant answers that the aliens are so highly intelligent that their exact location has not been determined yet. In fact, very little information about them is available. Only this much is known, that in 2048 they had started their attack from some northern region of Russia and then gradually spread across the entire world. He further explains that this time machine was built with great difficulty. That is why for now they can only travel between limited timelines. When someone asks what the aliens look like, the lieutenant simply says that seeing them, any person would tremble with fear. The moment everyone hears this, a hush falls over the entire hall. Just then, the siren suddenly starts blaring, meaning it was time to go to the future. Within a short while, everyone starts entering the glowing purple light, the wormhole. But at exactly that moment, an alarm goes off in the control room. A dangerous technical problem occurs in the time machine. The operators immediately try to stop the process, but by then it was too late. Everyone had already gone inside the wormhole. The machine does get them to the future, but instead of dropping them a few feet above the ground, it leaves them hundreds of feet up in the sky. Suddenly appearing mid-air, the people start falling straight down. Most of them die on the spot, falling from such a height. But fortunately, Dan, Charlie, Dorian, and some others fall into a building's swimming pool. This saves their lives. After coming out of the pool, Dan looks around in all directions. The entire Miami city was burning in flames. The sky was covered with smoke. Destruction was visible everywhere, and the most frightening thing were those strange sounds. A terrifying growl like some unknown animal was continuously heard. It was not like any known animal. Just then, a lieutenant from the future military contacts them. He tells them that the aliens have taken over the entire area, and this city can no longer be saved. So the Air Force is going to bomb the entire city in a little while to eliminate everything along with the aliens. But before the bombing started, one important mission had to be completed. The lieutenant says that some scientists are trapped in a research lab. Before the bombing begins, they must be rescued and taken out of the city. Seeing Dan's military background, the lieutenant gives him the command of this mission. Dan immediately takes his team and heads toward the research lab. The scene inside the lab was very frightening. The entire research center had been badly destroyed. Broken equipment and bloodstains were everywhere. The team slowly advances inside. Then suddenly Dan shines his flashlight up toward the ceiling, and everyone freezes with fear. Several human bodies had been hung up above. Dan immediately informs the lieutenant about this. Then they realize that these were the scientists they had come to rescue. And because the aliens had left their prey here, the meaning was clear that they would soon return. The lieutenant immediately gives the order to take all the lab's data and chemicals and get out from there as quickly as possible. Dan and his team start the work without wasting any time. But just then, news comes that the Air Force has left to begin the bombing, meaning they had only 6 minutes left. Everyone quickly takes the necessary data and chemicals and starts coming down the stairs. But this very decision was going to change their lives. While coming down the stairs, everyone's eyes suddenly go upward. The moment Dan shines the flashlight above, an alien is seen sitting there quietly. Its body was swaying like tentacles hanging in the air. These were the white spikes. Their appearance was so creepy that everyone trembles with fear. In the very next instant, a sharp needle-like thing shoots out from the alien's tentacle at bullet speed and pierces straight through a man's chest. He dies right there. Dan immediately starts firing. The others also start shooting at the aliens. But the most dangerous thing was that there was not just one, but several white spikes present there, and bullets were barely having any effect on them. The aliens rapidly start attacking Dan's team. Somehow Dan, Charlie, Dorian, and some others manage to get out of the lab. But upon reaching outside, they find that white spikes have already attacked the rescue team as well. At that same moment, the Air Force begins bombing the entire city. Explosions, fire, and smoke spread everywhere. Dan, along with his remaining team, starts running to save their lives. They were just about to get out of the city when a large explosion occurs very close to them. The force of the blast sends everyone flying, and darkness descends before Dan's eyes. Sometime later, Dan's eyes open. He finds himself in a completely different place. Charlie was also lying unconscious nearby. Both come outside and see that this is a military base. Outside, they also spot Dorian. Dorian tells them that most of the people who had come with them have been killed. Just then, 2 soldiers take Dan to the lieutenant. The lieutenant thanks Dan for bringing the data and chemicals from the lab, but Dan gets a strange feeling looking at her, as though he had seen her somewhere before. That is why he asks her where she is from. The lieutenant answers with a slight smile, "From the same place you came from." The moment he hears just this, Dan understands everything. That lieutenant was none other than his own daughter, Murray Forrester, the future's grown-up Murray. Seeing his little daughter in the future as a military research leader, Dan becomes emotional. He feels proud of his daughter, but there was a different kind of sadness in Murray's eyes. She tells Dan that there is a specific reason she called him here, and when the right time comes, she will tell him everything. After this, Murray takes him inside the base and shows him a picture of a specific alien. This alien was a little different from the other white spikes. Murray explains that this is a female white spike, and until now only one female has ever been seen. She builds a nest underground and the other white spikes are born from there. Murray further explains that scientists have prepared a toxin that can kill the male aliens. But the female is so powerful that the toxin does not affect her. So their plan now is to capture the female alive and bring her to the lab so that by studying her body, a toxin can be created that can also kill her. If the female dies, the entire white spike species can be eliminated. Murray wanted Dan to help her with this mission. A little while later, their entire team boards a helicopter and heads toward the female white spike's nest. On the way, Dan sees that white spikes have spread across the entire world. They were mercilessly killing and eating every living thing. Just then, Murray explains that in 2048, these creatures had suddenly emerged from an island in northern Russia. No satellite had seen them coming from the sky. No spaceship was found either. In just 3 years, they had taken over the entire world. They had no agenda, no demands. They were simply hungry, and every creature on Earth was just food for them. Here, a very important point comes up. These aliens did not come from the sky. There was no spaceship either. So then where had they actually come from? The answer to this question was still pending. A little while later, their team reaches the female's nest. The soldiers start throwing large chains and ropes onto her to capture her. They try to lock her inside a joint cage, but suddenly, the female gets agitated. She comes out of the tunnel and falls upon the soldiers. Her claws and teeth were so dangerous that several soldiers are killed in seconds. Seeing the situation worsening, Murray tells Dan to stay in the helicopter and herself goes into the tunnel along with the remaining soldiers. But just then, the male white spikes sense the female's danger signal and start coming toward them in large numbers. Dan can no longer sit still. He also goes down inside the tunnel. After a very difficult and life-threatening struggle, they finally manage to lock the female inside the cage. Then a helicopter lifts that cage and takes it far away from there. But the danger was not over yet. Male white spikes form a group and start attacking the soldiers. Dan and Murray somehow get out from there and reach a beach. There they fire flare guns to send a signal for help. Until the rescue arrives, both get a chance to talk privately. Then Dan asks Murray that he has been told his death will happen before her years. He wanted to know how that happened and what happened to Emmy and Murray afterward. The moment she hears this question, Murray's eyes fill up. She tells him that Dan had been broken inside because of not being able to achieve his dream job. When Murray was 12 years old, Dan had left Emmy and Murray. Although despite everything, Emmy always believed that Dan was a good person. But when Murray turned 16, Dan was killed in a car accident. Saying all of this, Murray says, "Now you know the truth. Try not to make the same mistake again because I do not want to lose you." Hearing his daughter's words, Dan is completely shattered. He cannot believe that he would change so much in the future. A little while later, the rescue helicopter arrives there and takes them back to the base. Dan and Murray take the female white spike to the last research base built in the middle of the ocean. This was humanity's last major research center where soldiers and scientists from different countries of the world were working together. The female alien is bound with heavy chains and given a sedative injection every hour to keep her under control. After this, Murray starts continuously experimenting on her blood. Gradually, 6 days of Dan's time in the future are completed. The next day, he had to return to the present. So, he also starts helping Murray. The entire night, both father and daughter together test different toxins on the female's blood, and finally in the morning, their hard work succeeds. They create a toxin that could also kill the female white spike. But at exactly that moment, the female white spike suddenly wakes up. Along with this, an alarm starts blaring throughout the entire research base because millions of male white spikes were swimming across the ocean to come and save the female. The most frightening thing was that they could swim at tremendous speed, not only on land but also in water. Their numbers were so large that stopping them was almost impossible. Within a short while, several white spikes get inside the research base. Meanwhile, the countdown for Dan to return to the present time had also started. He had only a few minutes left. Just then, Murray finally tells him what the real reason was for calling him there. She says that in the future, the number of aliens has grown so much that the toxin they have is not sufficient. So she wants Dan to take this toxin back to the present and work together with scientists there to prepare it on a large scale. Because the present time still has resources and time as well. If preparations are made in time, perhaps the aliens can be stopped before they even attack. Dan agrees to her plan, but he was not willing to go alone, leaving his daughter behind. He decides that he will take Murray along with him to the present too. After this, Murray starts taking him toward the helicopter so they can remain safe in the sky until the return process begins. But just then, the male white spikes reach the female and break her chains and free her. Dan and Murray had come quite close to the helicopter, but suddenly the female attacks from behind and Murray is badly injured. It becomes difficult for her to move forward. Just then, Murray gives the toxin in her hand to Dan and says, "It was good to see you again, Dad. I became the way you wanted me to be." There were tears in her eyes. She then says, "I love you, Dad." Hearing this, Dan's eyes also well up. In truth, Murray had understood that she might not survive now. At that same moment, the female white spike arrives there. But before she can do anything, a large explosion happens, and the entire platform starts breaking apart and falling into the sea. Murray also starts falling down along with the female, and down below, thousands of male white spikes were waiting for them. Dan, without wasting a single second, leaps down to save his daughter. But before he can catch her, his time runs out. Suddenly, a powerful jolt hits, and in the very next instant, Dan returns from the future to the present. Upon returning, he falls to the ground and loses consciousness. A little while later, when his eyes open, he immediately tells the soldiers that the toxin should be prepared in large quantities and sent to the future. But just then, a soldier stops him and explains that doing this is no longer possible because in the future the aliens have destroyed the time machine. Now, no one can go to the future. Hearing this, Dan is completely shattered. He understands that future Murray is no longer alive. Charlie and Dorian had also somehow survived and returned from this war. The moment Dan comes out of the military base, he sees Emmy. Emmy sees him alive and hugs him tightly. But even after coming home, Dan's mind does not find peace. He sits the entire night in little Murray's room. Looking at his sleeping daughter, he keeps remembering future Murray, because now he knew what his daughter was going to become in the years ahead. Just then, Emmy comes to him and asks what had happened in the future. After this, Dan tells her the entire story. The future, the aliens, Murray, the toxin, everything. Hearing all of this, Emmy's eyes also fill with tears. Dan says that he has the toxin, but he cannot figure out what to do with it now. And with this, the story comes to an end. And finally, humanity survives a threat that could have wiped out the entire world in the future. And that's the end of the movie. Hope you enjoyed the recap. If you did, please hit the like button, leave a hype comment, and tell me which movie I should recap next. Don't forget to subscribe to Midnight Recaps and press the bell icon so you never miss a new video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.